Okay, there we go. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. At our first meeting, there was a lot of interest about having sort of a general introduction to ISNI, all that it is, to kind of give us an idea of what we're going to be doing here. And Emma and Angela have very generously agreed to give us that very overview. So, Emma and Angela, I'm going to hand it off to you. And thank you again for putting this together.
Thank you very much. So we were asked to give an ISNI introduction. So we put this presentation together, which we hope will cover that need. But if there are other things that people have questions about or would like some more explanation on, then we're happy to consider doing further sessions. If people think that there's any other particular ISNI topics that they'd like to learn more about, then we can certainly investigate that. We're going to go through some slides. I'm going to do some of them and then hand over to Angela. But I'm perfectly happy to take questions whenever as well. So feel free to unmute and ask some questions if you need to. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of ISNI and how it got started. So it is actually an ISO standard. ISO 27729 is the standard for the International Standard Name Identifier. It goes like way back, its actual origins of where these discussions started. So there was original concept of an International Standard Authority Data Number, an ISADN, and that emerged from IFTA discussions in the 1980s. So we're like really looking way back to sort of when these thoughts started to appear. These discussions continued for many years, particularly within libraries, thought that this would be quite a useful thing to have. There was then a project called the Inter-Party Project, which ran from 2002 to 2003, which was funded by the European Commission. And that was a real crucial turning point for these discussions, bringing together sort of like a group who were quite visionary, all from different sectors, libraries, rights organisations, and then publishers and metadata experts, all these people coming together to have a discussion about this particular topic. They wanted to solve the persistent issue of siloed identity management. The findings from this project helped to lay the groundwork for a universal identifier that could bridge domains and metadata practices. And it was thought, there's ISO standards for identifiers for books, journals, recordings, and artists. So we need one for names as well. And so work began in 2006 on what would become the ISO standard that we have today. So in 2010, ISNI was incorporated in London by its founding members. And you can see a list of those founding members there, of which the British Library is one of them. SCAPA, which was formerly IPDA, the International Formal Database Association. ProQuest had its representative as BALCA, a books in print organisation operating in the North American area. And all of these, and then sort of like the other ones that we have there as well, so covering quite a few different sectors. And all of these founding members contributed initial data loads, their specialist expertise, and also helped with software and database design. 5 organisations associated with the founding members are still actively involved with ISNI and provide the majority of members of the ISNI board. So the British Library and Bibliothèque Nationale de France are still there. CSAC, which has got 229 author societies from 121 countries. IFRO, 90 reproductive right organisations, and then about 55 national and international author, publisher, and visual creator associations, and OCLC, who host the ISNI database and provide our technical expertise. So we're now in 2026. We now have 97 different sources contributing directly to ISNI, and that's been taken from our source in January this year from our website. But, that's ever growing, that could be changing quite soon. We have new people who are interested all the time and in discussions with people who want to become members of ISNI. So that's just what it is at this moment. Each of those contributors have their own source code, so you can see where each particular piece of data has come from, right down to each individual field within an ISNI record, and we'll look a little bit more at those records later. And we've got some examples there, so you can know who has contributed that particular piece of data, right down to the data field. So just to talk a little bit about the governance of ISNI. So we have ISNI IA, or the International Agency, which is a limited company registered in the UK. That is the overall registration authority for the ISNI standard. That is who we go to for the sort of overall governance of the standard. It then has a board of directors, and we've got the current board members listed here. Those come from a range of different organisations, many of which are from the founding members of the standard. Day-to-day management and direction of ISNI itself is led by the executive director, who is currently Tim Devonport, who works at a company called Editor, and they run ISNI IA for us. Tim is sort of like the first point of contact when people want to become members and they want some information about that, and he helps to set up meetings to sort of onboard new members, etc., things like that. ISNI itself is funded and led by all its member organisations. As of January 2026, there were 5 founding members, 30 regular members, and more than 35 registration agencies. And we'll explain a little bit more about the difference between what is a member and what is a registration agency. At the moment, these are based across 24 different countries in the world, and lots of different sectors, libraries, music organisations, rights collection agencies, so a real good spread. And this is, we'll talk a little bit more about this. This is what ISNI is trying to achieve, in the fact that it's not in silos. It can go across all different sectors and really be quite useful for data sharing. The other part of the sort of ISNI organisation, as it were, is the ISNI quality team. And that's compiled of staff from both the British Library, managed by Angela, my colleague here, and also at Bibliothèque Nationale de France, managed by Iris Bodin. And the quality team's tasks are handling all of the user queries. We test data for any new data sources. We help with onboarding of new members and providing them with information about ISNI. We monitor the quality of the data by doing sort of regular surveys and testing new data loads, things like that. So it's a really curated database. We're always trying to improve the quality and check on the quality of it. We also help to write documentation, and that can be sort of helping to look over technical documentation that's written by OCLC, but also writing sort of best practice guidelines for ISNI users, for example, the pseudonyms policy that some of you may have seen on the ISNI website. We also, look at the policies on there, help to revise them, make sure they're up to date, and when any new information comes out. Another part of the ISNI community is its consultation groups, and these are run by particular sectors to discuss issues to do with ISNI that affect that particular sector. But we also do have quite a lot of crossover. So, for example, we've had people come from the music consultation group with presentations to the publishing group, and the libraries group and the publishing group they work quite closely together because they have quite a lot of common issues. And I think that really helps as well because you have this standard that you're all using, but you might have slightly different language about in your particular sector, but it helps to come together and get that common understanding. Um, each of these meets at different frequencies, but they all still do quite a lot of outreach to their own communities as well. I know the libraries group has open meetings where it invites any ISNI members to come along and learn about things that are going on in that sector, asking questions, suggesting things that we need more guidance in, and that kind of thing. There was actually a one for the research sector as well. Unfortunately, that's currently inactive at the moment. A lot of the other things that they do as well is provide sort of best practice documentation. And they have been contributing to documents such as ISNI benefits for, and then so far there's been ISNI benefits for publishers, ISNI benefits for libraries. I know the publishing group is working on ones for ISNI benefits for authors, and I think for booksellers as well. So there's various documents that they're starting to produce to get the word out about how useful ISNI can be for these sectors and for these different industries. The Technical Advisory Committee is a specialist technical committee within the ISNI community. It's chaired by myself at the moment. And what we aim to do is gather technical requirements from all the different ISNI communities, prioritise which ones are going to get put forward for development. And our goal is to try and put forward those that are going to have the benefit for most ISNI users, because that makes sense really. So we have a look at what's coming and go, what's going to benefit the most different communities, and try to get those put forward for development. I'm going to hand over to Angela to talk about what is ISNI. Yeah, my turn. So for the second half of this presentation, we're going to have a look at what ISNI is, and also how we kind of create its using process that we've had around that. So ISNI is a 16-digit identifier. So that example that we see on the screen is the identifier for William Shakespeare. And that number is generated by algorithms in the background. So we have no control over what number it is in that 16-digit. That's completely done by the algorithms. And it's unique to each identity as well. So that number is for William Shakespeare. The term identity in ISNI can refer to a person, so an author, a musician, a stage name, pseudonym, things along those lines. And it can also refer to an organisation or a group. So, for example, a business, a band, a record label, a public community. So we have quite a big range of things that ISNI covers. Basically, any identity that is involved in creating content. So ISNI pulls on data sources from all around the world, and it uses matching algorithms to find a match on a name and title, for example, and then it can link those two sources together. So if a neighbourhood report has a name and title that matches to a Korean report, for example, those two sources will come together. So it's acting as that bridge identifier, and that works across different domains. So libraries, publishers, music, rights management, and it also works across different metadata rules, different languages, and scripts. So this is a bit of an example of how that bridge identifier works. So over on the left-hand side at the top, we've got the technician applicants. They're a small portion of their authority record for the identity of the group. So the 001 field contains their local identifier, and in the 100 field, you can see that they've used the dates of birth and death in their heading. And underneath that one, we've got the NAPO record for that same identity. So we have the local identifier that's on 010 field, and then that 100 field where you can see that NAPO hasn't chosen to use the dates of birth and death for the heading, so it's just the name. But then over on the right hand side, we've got the ISNI. So the 003 field right at the top, that's the ISNI number, and that's how it's presented in the ISNI. The next two fields down for those O35 fields, you can see that there's the BNF identifier and the DLC maker identifier in two separate O35 fields. And then underneath that, we've got two 700 fields, one of which brings the information from the DNF record or the hidden they decided to use, and the one below that is the DLC maker hidden. And so it just brings all of those sources together into one record. And like I say, that's important. So a little bit on how ISNIs are created and amended. So there's a few different ways that ISNIs can be created by members and by registration agencies. And Emma mentioned earlier about the members and the registration agencies. So I'll touch a little bit on the differences between them first. So ISNI members are organisations who have full access to the ISNI database, including bachelor options, access to the API, and can also do command and assignment, so making business they can make assignments or creating ISNIs for their own use, but they can't act on behalf of other customers or clients outside of their organisation. So they're just acting on behalf of themselves for members. Registration agencies, or sometimes referred to them as regs, they can work on behalf of other organisations, and they can also include spirits. So British Library, we are a registration agency. We used to have a portal, an ISNI portal, where users could submit data through the portal, pay £5, and then they would sign ISNI through the Unfortunately, our portal is currently unveiled at the minute due to the cyber attack that we had a couple of years ago, but we are doing a new one to get that back up, but we won't talk about that right now. This will go far. So both members and registration agencies also pay a fee to ISNI to be a member or a registration agency as well. And then again, as Emma mentioned, the quality team is in the two halves, and our site, the British Library, we handle user requests. So these are what come through the yellow box and continue screen. That yellow box is available on every single ISNI record that's in the public database, and anybody can click on that, submit some data that maybe needs changing in the ISNI that's wrong, maybe some information that needs adding, some needs titles, and that then comes through every day via email to us in the quality team, and we deal with that on a regular basis. So everything that comes through that yellow box is dealt with in person by us. And I think that people don't sometimes realise that it's actually a person on the other end of that yellow box that's doing all of the work. So one of the tools that we use for creating ISNIs is called WebCat. This can be navigated through the members view of ISNI. So that button at the top there that says WebCat, and we have a look at it. That is just a form. So this is a really nice and easy way for us to be able to create ISNIs. So we might, for example, get an email from a customer that says, please can I have an ISNI? I have written these books. This is my date of birth. This is the web link to my personal website. And we would then come to WebCat and we will fill this form out with that information. And as long as they've given us enough information, so the record is rich enough, once we save that form, it will then create an assigned ISNI in the website that they can see. So that's just one version of how we can create ISNIs. That form on the screen is an example of the form for a personal name heading, and we have an organisation form that looks a little bit different, but it's the same principle, just that we have some data influence. Our other method is called WinIDW. So this is a software that's supported by OCLC, supported and owned by OCLC, and it's used by both members and live people the same as WebCat. This one has a little bit more functionality than WebCat, so you can do things like splits. For example, if there's a mixed identity on a record, you can use an IDW to split those up into two records, which we can't do on WebCat. So this is a little bit extra. And we can also add protect fields to block records using the data from the sources. It just gives us a little bit more functionality. We also have more options through this with what data we can put into the new ISNI and create a new one. Because this is all we get. We don't get a form to fill out. We're not restricted by boxes. We literally start completely from scratch. So the downside to an IBW that I find is that you know the ISNI mark fields in order to create this from scratch, which is not something that stays in the so I can build form. But yeah, that's another way that we have of creating instances. And then the third method that I can't really speak on too much is using the EMCO API. So some members and registration agencies use this to automate ISNI workflows, so they can upload bulk loads of records into the API, which will then get run through algorithms in the background and will assign ISNIs where it goes on the record encryption or if it's matched with an ISNI. As it says on there, that's mainly used for bulk uploads of records rather than individual ones, because it's a lot of work for individual. That's the manual upload and set for the individual ones. And all records submitted to the we, as a British Library, currently only use this for the ISNI portal, which generally is not action. So that's what I default to on the API. So just to really quickly touch on what actually happens in the background once you've submitted the data for a new ISNI, you create a new one. It doesn't just automatically go through and it's created no matter what data you put in. There's sort of certain things that you have to meet, certain criteria to be able to actually get an ISNI that's visible to the public. So the first thing that happens to the data that you submit is called a sparseness check. So that information is going to be checked you submitted. And if the data is so sparse that it's not going to be matched against anything that's already in the database, so if it can't ascertain whether that's a new person and if it's ISNI, then it'll fail and you won't have an ISNI. The data won't get uploaded into ISNI, it just won't go. So for example, if you've only got a name without a title, you have a date of birth, it's just not going to go. That's the first check that does. And if it passes that sparseness check, then it's going to go through the matching process. So that matches it. It looks at the name, it looks at the information you submitted, and it's going to look at everything that's already in the ISNI database, and it's going to see if there's any matches. And if it finds a match, that's kind of the first 3, 4 points on that slide there. It depends on how close of a match it is to the existing, whether it'll merge it in form that one to be together. Those percentages are all based on algorithms. So again, that's something that we can control as to whether it's going to be a confident match or not. But that's what happens with that second step. So it's matching, it's going to have a look to see if there's something already existing. If there isn't something already existing and there's no match in the record in the ISNI database, then we're going to have a look. It doesn't mean that you're not going to have an ISNI. It's going to then check if the record is rich enough, so if there's enough data in it to be a valid ISNI in its own right. And it's also going to look at whether the record name is unique. So if there's no other name across the entire ISNI database and the record is rich enough, it will be essentially available to use that. So just to finish off, we'll just have a little look at what an ISNI record actually looks like and how it's kind of structured. So this is an example of what an assigned ISNI looks like in mark form. The first little arrow at the top there is pointing to the O3 field, and that's where we can see the ISNI number. So that first string of numbers in that field is the ISNI number for the entity. The next arrow down, as I mentioned earlier, that O35 field that contains the local identifier of the source. So this is LT NATO, and the end of that string contains the local identifier. There's only one L35 in this record, so that means that we've only got one source data in this record. So there's no other sources that have got any contributions into this component. And then just skipping down to that third arrow, that 700 field, that's the authorized name that NATO has chosen for this identity. So I'm not going to go into sort of what every single field is because it can get a bit complex. This is probably a middle of the road ISNI record, possibly maybe even one of the simpler ones. There's some that are, ridiculously complex and you don't. This one doesn't actually have any titles in it, which I know is after I've this presentation, so I can't point those out, but that will be in a 910 field that goes under the second. Can I just add to that as well? Because earlier I was talking about each data source having its own source code. So on this one, as Angela said, it's just LC NACO. So at the end of each of those fields, you can see a $2 LC NACO. So that's saying that each of those fields has been provided by NACO. On a different record, you might see different $2s on various fields. So it would tell you which data source has provided each one of those fields that you can see with that $2 at the end of the field. You can see where each piece of the data is coming from. And then just a quick look at what that is and then looks like for the public view. So it kind of simplifies it a little bit for the public view, and it changes the order around, so it's a little bit easier for the public to read than the reader mark, for example. Down at the bottom there, I've just put that little arrow to highlight the sources. You can see that LC NACO is in blue text, and that's actually a hyperlink. So this is where the data comes in. So some sources are set up to be that link data, and if you click on that LC NACO link, it will take you out to that context so you can see the NACO record. And if there was multiple sources on this record, if they were also part of the linked data, then theirs would also be helpful to go and see that. For example, you'd be able to click on the bias and some good data. So that was a pretty quick overview of ISNI, and we've kind of added some useful links to the ISNI homepage, some FAQs, various things about registration, agencies, consultation groups. So we'll send the presentation around after so you can actually see these links and click on them and have a little explore. But I think that is our presentation done.
Thanks, Emma and Angela. That was really informative. I'm going to open it up to questions. Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, I actually have one. And this might be a really broad question, but what do you see this group contributing to ISNI? Like what would you like to see us do for ISNI?
Um, well, that's a very good question.
It's what we're trying to figure out.
I think, I mean, in some of the conversations in some of the other groups as well, is sort of like what constitutes a project for this particular early adopter phase. That really depends on the organization, I think. So, um, for example, in the past, maybe we've had organizations to go, oh, we want to provide ISNIs for all of our faculty if it's a university library, for example. Or it might be you've got a particular collection that you want to provide ISNIs for, sometimes because you don't have the resources to do, for example, NACO work on something. So you might sort of think, oh, okay, we want to do some identity management on this. We don't have the resource to do it in our traditional way. So let's do ISNIs for it instead. And I think, it's what each individual participant of this early adopter phase wants to use this for, really.
Okay. Looks like we have a question from Paula. Let's see here. What are the requirements for becoming a contributor?
So, do you mean by quantity, or do you mean financially, or?
See if we can.
Oh, I'm unmuted. Great.
Oh, yeah, go for it, Paula.
I had trouble hearing. I don't mean financially. What was the first thing you said?
Do you mean sort of like by amount of records to contribute?
Right,
or?
records, either contributing or make suggesting changes or updates or creating new records in general.
Yeah, so I mean, it doesn't matter. I think with this group, it doesn't matter sort of like how many or how few records you want to contribute. That really doesn't matter. You know, if you want to do one, that's fine. If you want to do lots, that's absolutely fine as well. Um, you would need to be a listening member or platform organisation that is a listening member or registration agency to be able to sort of do direct contributions in that way. Because yeah, it is a membership kind of standard where you need to be part of that membership to actually do them.
Okay, thank you.
Ian, looks like you raised your hand.
Yes, yeah, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to raise the point that, well, I've been working on these for a few years now, and one of the biggest issues we come across is there's a lot of mismerged records, there's a lot of duplicate records. Is there work going on to make sure that's corrected? Because a lot of the time we are, say we've got a person with a similar name, it's a lot of work to un, unbuckle some of the incorrect records together. And obviously, we have to contact the BL sometimes to make sure that some corrections are made. So, was the threshold initially a bit too low, do you think?
Well, we do sort of kind of keep an eye on that and do review it. One of the major technical developments that we've had over the last year, which had a lot of work put in from the quality team and from OCLC, was a duplicate crawler, which was developed. It's just for persons at the moment. We haven't got on to developing one for organisations. So there's a lot of backwards and forwards of sort of like, okay, we'll develop it like this, we'll try it out in the test environment. And then there were tweaks made, and then there were improvements made for different number of scripts, for example. And that actually got switched on towards the end of last year out of lots of backwards and forwards of testing, tweaking, testing. So that's one improvement that we've tried to make to the whole database of it that goes through and tries to pick up things that it thinks are duplicates and merging them automatically rather than having to do it in a manual way. Yeah, but I appreciate sometimes there are splits that need to be done as well, and those can get quite complicated, which Angela's team can definitely say.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? I have another one. I noticed that there is a lot of music, which I love to see. In another life, I was a singer. Um, are there any other subject areas that you would like to see more in ISNI?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, like you said, there is a lot of music data on there now. It's like a really growing sector that's becoming interested. It started off with Google, YouTube joining, and then sort of other organisations such as Apple. And of course, when we've got things like that, then everybody else starts to take notice. So there's lots of music data going on there now. I mean, yeah, anything really is useful, I think. We've done particular specialist projects where we've had people with data about people involved in archaeology and, you know, some really sort of like quite interesting special topics where people have come and said, we want to have some identities for these, can you help us? So, yeah, anything really. I don't think there's any particular sector that I think we're really missing on that, but yeah, anything is useful.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I'm going to ask the rude question. What are the membership fees?
That is a very good question, and one that I unfortunately cannot answer because
Fair enough.
Court usually deals with that. It also varies as well by the size of the organisation. So we try to do sort of a tiered approach so that the really, really big, rich organisations are going to be paying higher fees than the little small ones. So yeah, that's something that would have to be discussed with them.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Does anyone else have any other questions?
Just going to kind of look in the chat and catch up with those as well. Yeah, Crystal pointed to the yellow box that I was talking about. So anything that comes through that yellow box that comes to me and my team and we really close. So we do try to, you said that responses are good. We do try to pride ourselves on that and make sure that things get done kind of same day. So any feedback from a record that we find it can come through there. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, I feel you, Ian. It's too tempting, isn't it, to do some tidying up?
I'm the worst about falling down those maintenance rabbit holes. I understand totally.
I must admit, we did have, when COVID hit and we all suddenly went into lockdown at very, very short notice, we did get people working on ISNI because it was something that we could do without our library management system at home. So we had people looking at possible duplicates and merging them. So we did quite a lot of work on that during COVID lockdown.
Absolutely. Looks like we have a question from John that I don't know that I can answer, but Crystal, not to put you on the spot, is this one you could answer? Let's see.
Yes, it is. So PCC membership is kind of up in the air right now when it comes to EMCO. We've got a model for it, which is the SEICO funnels. So if you're familiar with SEICO funnels, basically these are set up for folks who are not traditional PCC members who have like quotas for participation, voting rights in the organization, etc. But they do want to set up a funnel to address gaps in SEICO or to kind of funnel SEICO proposals from not traditional member organizations into the program. So with EMCO, we're looking at it and saying, oh my, we really opened the doors to anybody who's interested in participating. Folks can participate as an organization or as an individual. And there are no quotas for participation or anything like that. So, what's most likely going to happen is that all EMCO members will be EMCO members of the PCC. And so, just participating in EMCO and signing up gets you that form of membership. A lot of folks like me are part of institutions that are in the PCC already. So I have kind of a double membership now, just like folks who are in a funnel who are already in a PCC institution. Um, but individuals who join EMCO will be members of the PCC, albeit probably not the same as those who have quotas for NACO and BIBCO and Consort, etc. But and without those voting rights, but still part of the PCC umbrella. We're trying to expand the PCC umbrella as much as possible. I hope that helps and answers your question. And I think that the registry coordinators, we're trying to ensure that registry coordinators have a little bit more of a voice to represent each group in the PCC. So it's possible that we could figure out a deal where, okay, each registry has a vote in things at the PCC, but none of that is really decided yet. We just opened the conversation in November with POCO.
Hello. Oh, sorry, John, did you want to? I was going to
yeah, I mean, my question was really from the point of view of ISNI, not from the point of view of PCC, because I believe PCC has some kind of membership in ISNI, and all these librarians in this group, EMCO group, will need some kind of access to ISNI, I believe, and how will that be provided? Well, it's a question, really.
I'm sorry.
That was going to be my question to you, John, was that what you actually meant? Because there was a PCC ISNI pilot and there was PCC membership to ISNI, which covered a number of organisations that actually contributed to that pilot. That pilot has come to an end, but the fact is that ISNI membership does need to be paid for. And unfortunately, PCC is not a kind of an organisation with a headquarters with a budget and that kind of thing. So I think conversations need to be had of how that membership fee is going to be covered by PCC members who want to contribute, if it's going to be done in a kind of centralised way.
I think that there have been some conversations with ISNI about that. And the person to ask this question to who has the most information is Michelle DeRocher from Harvard, I think.
Yes, I saw Michelle was on the call as well.
Yes, she happens to be here.
Yay!
Yeah, I think the statement about the status of the PCC's ISNI membership being in an uncertain phase is accurate. I would say because the revenue stream of a traditional ISNI member is really not part of how the PCC operates. With, like, we don't have dues, we don't have revenue. It's a volunteer organization of metadata experts. I was hoping, and certainly exploration on all kinds of ideas are welcomed, but hoping there might be an avenue as an in-kind membership to lend the metadata expertise of the PCC through the participants' activities in maybe an associate quality team kind of role, or something that isn't the dollars and cents, but rather the expertise that enriches the database through maintenance and human eyes, as opposed to the batch processing that sometimes can result in humans, having a role to play to remediate some of the issues that Ian was mentioning. But these are all ideas at this stage. They're not codified. I had been wondering with EMCO's early adopter phase if there might be some opportunity to reinvigorate the PCC's membership in ISNI in a kind of additional phase as part of the exploration of EMCO. I see EMCO as just a tremendous opportunity for ISNI to be part of that entity management cooperative program. So I think there are lots of conversations that should be had, and as much ideation as possible to find a way to keep PCC at the ISNI table. I'm not sure if that helps with the question, but I think that is at least a rundown of the current status. Does
I
that
think that's
sound
really helpful.
good? Okay. Did you have anything else to add to that, Emma, or any other ideas or models that could be sort
I
of?
know these conversations have been ongoing for a little while. We chatted before, Michelle, about it, and when Andrew McEwen was here as well, he was sort of trying to get this progressed. And it's one of those things that's just a little bit tricky because, like I say, we're not dealing with an organisation, we're dealing with lots of people who just sort of volunteer to this community, as it were, instead. So it's a bit of a tricky conversation, but I'm quite happy to facilitate any discussions with the ISNI IA and PCC to like bringing people together if we've got some ideas to put this forward. Yeah, to help facilitate that.
It sounds like that may be a good next step. What do folks think?
I certainly agree that gaining some clarity on whether there's an open door for PCC within ISNI. I understand is it sort of a non-traditional ask in terms of a role and a manner to be involved. But I do think there's a lot of opportunity for data enrichment and the value of PCC members participating in ISNI in some manner, if that's possible.
Yeah, I I tend to agree. So sounds like that's part of what we need to work on for next time. I believe I just want to make sure that everyone has access to our Google group. I know we had some bugs as far as people being able to join, see content. I think I've worked all of those out, but please don't hesitate to get in contact with me if there are still issues. Um, have about 12 minutes left or so, but what are we thinking in terms of a next meeting? Do we want to do a month, maybe 2 months? Any strong feelings?
I think it's good to keep momentum going.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so you think a month would be appropriate?
Probably, yeah.
Great.
I think
Okay.
because we're putting out that we put out that call for a second cohort, so I think the more we can get ourselves organised and everything, if there's any new people joining as well.
Absolutely. No, I agree. So I will aim and I think for Emma and Angela, especially around this time is going to be about ideal. So I'll aim for, for me, it's 8:49, which is fine. I'm an early riser. I don't care. And if you can't make it, we'll always record. But other than that, no, I for one, I think, oh, and you may have said this, Emma and Angela, but will you send me your slides so I can post it to the group?
So
Great. That would be, I mean, it was such a rich presentation. It really helped me understand more about ISNI.
been useful. We should have include the notes and everything as well, so there's some like explain slides a little bit.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so I will start looking at the calendar and I will hopefully get a meeting for next month out soon. And yes, absolutely, Crystal, I will be posting the transcript. Um, And as soon as the recording's ready, I'll be providing that. And if there are any questions in the meantime, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me. And again, Emma and Angela, thank you so much. That was so helpful.
No worries.
Yeah, well, other than that, thanks everyone for coming and hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you, Leslie.
Thank you.